This is my daughter. I don't know if you've actually seen her before. So this is my daughter, Juliet. Can you say hi to Shin Shin? Can you wave? Can you go hi?
Hi. Oh, so cute.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's gonna be my co-pilot. I'm gonna try setting her down to play for a little bit, but I'll wait till people get here. Hey everyone, how's it going? Hey. I did want to note a few things before our social discussion. The first was I do not plan to make this public on YouTube. Don't feel like you have to share, but I'm not going to make that public just because I can, like in the U.S. sometimes there's security questions like were you employed by like this list of 4 people. So I did just want to get that out there. The thing that made me think of this question is my second job that I had actually was working at one of the restaurants down where I grew up at Lake of the Ozarks, which was kind of in the news this past weekend for throwing very large Memorial Day parties in the U.S. where there was like hundreds of people all together in pools without masks, and it just got me thinking like I wonder what everyone else kind of did before they got here. So those are 2 quick things. I'll go ahead and start with what my first job was. So I talked about my second one. My first one, I worked at Walmart, which if you, does everyone know what Walmart is? Okay. Yeah, I worked at Walmart in the electronics section, like selling TVs and DVDs and CDs. We had a huge CD collection, like a big CD flatbed collection. So it was kind of fun to see how technology has changed. But that was my first job. It was nice kind of being somewhat related to technology than getting to at least like tell people about computers and things like that. What about you, Remy?
Yeah, so I'm glad that you are asking this question because that's my first job. I actually have a picture and I won't let it in the agenda for a long time, so you can quickly go and download it if you want to make fun of me. So my first job was in a restaurant, but inside a hospital. Like I think people were served at tables, but I was not in the kitchen, but I was a dishwasher. So I was playing with water and yeah, washing all the stuff.
Getting your socks wet.
And yeah, that was a fun first job. I don't have only good memories about it because I was young and like the boss was not super nice. But that was yeah, I'm glad I did it because yeah, I think you need to have different experiences. And another job I did was working in fuel station on the highway, like not only fuel, but you know the rest stations, Shell it was, and I was like in the small cabin to make the people pay for the fuel, and also like when they would buy stuff in the station. Yeah, that was fun. That was 8 hours of work with only like 45 minutes break in the middle, I think, something like that. So yeah, that was kind of tough, but people were really nice there. And I'm also glad I did it because there were that's the only time I had to do like night shifts and weird shifts, like starting at 6 a.m. or doing the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift as well. So that was really interesting. You know, in the middle of the night, one guy would come with like in his Porsche, and he was that was not a super good memory because he was actually breathing, you know, alcohol. So on the highway, it's not super nice, but yeah, that's still a memory. Like you tend to see crazy things from time to time. But yeah, that was fun. Yeah, that's it for me. That was a lot. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
thanks for sharing though. Yeah, that was great.
cool. Yeah, Mark, what about you?
Yeah, my first job was when I was still at school, cleaning offices. So there was a big like office near where I used to live, where I grew up, and they also had a factory because they used to manufacture on the back. So we would clean the offices and the factories, and that was really, really hard. My second job was a bit more interesting. So there's a big theme park with roller coasters and things in the UK called Alton Towers, and that was maybe 10 miles away from where I grew up. So most of the kids, when they get old enough, they get a job there while they're at school or university. So I worked there, but I can share a link to it. It's called Alton Towers. I don't know whether you've heard of it, but it's got big roller coasters and rides, and it's for the whole family. But I'm not sure what they're doing now because, as Kyle said, you know, times have changed and people are really, really close together there, and it's full of maybe 10,000 people each day. So I guess they're probably closed right now. But that was super interesting because it would be open till late, and they'd have fireworks at night, and then they'd also have like Halloween shows and things like that. There was a lot going on, but it was a really good job for the summer while you were at school or university, because that was their busiest time during the summer when the kids were on holiday. What about you, Albert?
For me, it was like, was on my back. So I was in university. I was also I worked as a math tutor for like primary school students. So they are 10, 11 years old. And what I remember about it was I remember like I think I had to teach like so in primary schools here they had, for them, math is a little bit weird, I think. Like in later on in our school like curriculum, we usually like learn about algebra and stuff like that. So that is, I think, like when we are teenagers. So that's how I used to think about solving problems, and I had to teach something similar to the kids, and the schools didn't teach algebra at that level, so I had to figure out how to teach them. And then there was a very weird technique that they used that I couldn't really understand. I had to ask like other experienced tutor for help, like how to solve the problems that they are doing. Yeah, that was the only thing I remember of that job. Other than like handling with kids, it was fun. Like, I mean, they can be fun, they can be annoying.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah. How about Genshin?
I thought my experience would be very common, but it seems that it's the weirdest one. It's actually Rails 1.06, I think, when I was third grade in university. And it's building a few events website, like it's a company which will host some random events, like people sign up and leave message and get some rewards, things like that. So in summer intern, I made a few events website with Rails, and also
update some. There was a social network website for like it's not there anymore, but it's trying to build a copy of Mixi, which is a Japanese web social network. And yeah, it's just about it's just a lot of Ruby and Rails related works.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing, everyone. That was really cool. I liked all the stories and everything too. Moving on into announcements. I wanted to share that I noticed the code review guidelines were updated to encourage the use of conventional commits when reviewing an MR. Thought that was an interesting thing. If you weren't aware, please read up on that. The next item is thanks everyone for all the contributions for the 13.0 retro so far. Please add any final items this week, like early this week if you can, if there's more that you would like to add to it. I know everyone's kind of either emoted or shared something, so thank you very much for everything you've shared so far. And then Remy, I took your 360 feedback announcement, kind of expanded it a little bit. Okay. So 360 feedback started yesterday, and it'll run through the 8th for self, manager, and peer review. More details can be found at the handbook page that I linked to. The one thing I wanted to reiterate is feedback is a gift of time and energy, so please give it that time and energy so that you can be thoughtful and share helpful feedback to everyone that you're able to review. This opportunity for everyone to learn and grow. I'm really looking forward to see what feedback I get. I hope everyone else is as well. Into the agenda, Remy, you want to take the first item on master success rate?
Yeah, so now that we don't run the as-if-FOSS jobs in merge request, as expected, we experienced some broken masters because these jobs run in master now. And so I was just wondering if maybe that's confusing and counterintuitive to break GitLab master for actual breakage of the GitLab FOSS master. So basically, we just detect a bit in advance that GitLab FOSS will break, but we could have the same result by just waiting for the next sync to GitLab FOSS and for the GitLab FOSS pipeline to fail, and we would still get the notifications in the master broken channel, and we would still take action, and we would still have the way to run the as-if-FOSS jobs in merge request to ensure that this will actually resolve GitLab FOSS master in advance. But that would avoid the fact that we break GitLab master for actual GitLab FOSS failures. So I don't know, that's just an idea. I haven't had the time to read the comments yet. So if you want to voice your comment, Kyle.
Yeah, I agree that it's a little confusing catching it in master and communicating it just like a normal broken master. So I was wondering if we should have like a different classification for like a FOSS break that has maybe different guidelines specifically around like guidance to merge to maintainers. That might be a step to look at. I like catching it early, I'll say. Like I do like that part. It would be more efficient to remove them from master as well. So that's kind of the trade-off there, or more cost-effective, I should say. But it doesn't feel like we should be treating these as a broken master to me. And when I say we should be treating them, we shouldn't stop maintainers from merging, or we shouldn't be encouraging that part of the behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the question is if we should stop merging when FOSS broke. If we should stop, then maybe it should still run on master. But if we are okay to merge, then yeah, it probably shouldn't run on master.
I think it doesn't block from merging. People can still merge.
Yeah.
The only thing is that if the same tests have new failures, it might be difficult to see, like, because the subsequent master pipelines will also fail. So if there's any new failure introduced in those tests, then it might be a bit difficult to discover that.
Yeah, in the past,
Yeah.
when we once merged FOSS into EE, it was a hard period that FOSS would break very often and errors. And before the previous error can be fixed, the next error was added. And I think at once it probably has three different errors at the same time at max. And it's frustrating while we are fixing it and another error was added. But maybe it's getting better now, I don't know.
I think at least making it clear that for now, that if it's a broken master due to FOSS, that merging can continue. We should start and try that, and then look to kind of dial it back more. I don't think there's any downside to waiting until that scheduled FOSS pipeline, but we'd still have to create the issue in the GitLab repo since they're moved anyways. Like everything we wouldn't necessarily be able to track it any differently. We'd just be catching it later and reacting to it later. We do have the way to run it, so I do like that. But let's start with guideline adjustments. Jinshin, Albert, anything else that you would like to add? I know you have points below.
Jinshin first. Yeah, go on.
Okay. I think we should discuss this with the other maintainer first, because I know some people care about this. Like, we are treating FOSS as second level citizens. Some people don't really like that.
So if I can add something, I don't like the fact that we would treat broken masters due to as-if FOSS jobs differently from other broken masters. And the first thing is that we have a KPI for that. So, and it will like decrease the success rate regardless of the kind of failure. So that would actually like make our success rate go like decrease for no advantage. And another thing about Jinshin's point about making FOSS a second citizen, I think we now that we have the notifications in the master broken channel, I think we have a good process to tackle these failures, and since we also have the as-if FOSS jobs that can run in merge requests, that means that we can have a merge request dedicated to fixing FOSS and without the pressure to fix broken master for the main project that is under heavy development. That wouldn't avoid like new FOSS specific failures being introduced, but at least we have a good process and a good way to fix the FOSS package.
Yeah, I do agree with that. So I think we could still use the GitLab FOSS project as a source for broken master without having to run, because whatever is going to be in the GitLab main pipeline is going to be in the GitLab FOSS pipeline as well. So I feel like running as-if FOSS in master, that doesn't really give us a lot of additional advantages compared to running that pipeline itself in GitLab FOSS
Yeah.
project.
Yeah, I think we just save a few minutes in detecting these failures, maybe, but that's mostly it.
Yeah, and yeah, given the channels and the notifications and the processes, and we know like we have like some handbook for the process, so it's not really treating the FOSS project as second citizen, I think.
Cool.
Yeah, it's just the source of information is different, but we still treat it the same. My main worry is that is there a difference between running the job as in the master pipeline versus in the FOSS project? Does it make it more difficult to identify what the problem is when it fails in FOSS versus when it fails in the main pipeline? If it is equally, if the effort to identify the problem is the same, then I think there's no downside to running it in FOSS.
How often do those pipelines run in FOSS? Is it every 2 hours, just like the canonical project?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we have the master pipelines that run on every commit,
That's
like
true.
every
Yeah.
sync commits. And yeah, that's a good question, actually. We probably have a schedule pipeline as well.
But like you're saying, every master commit, which I was just gonna look and see how often that happens. Every 3 hour, like that looks like it runs every 3 hours. I support whatever direction the team should go. So I was very prescriptive at the start. I'm supportive wherever you guys want to go. I see your point where it kind of detracts from the KPI for a less significant reason, right? We're going to have an impact to our master stability KPI for something that isn't necessarily as much of a master broken as, like, it's not blocking work, I guess.
Actually, I would disagree on that because I think it still should be considered a master broken. Like if we have a KPI should cover both projects, I think. Like, yeah, especially for master pipeline.
Yeah, the thing is that we cannot detect that in advance, so we like the indicator we would fight against something that we cannot anticipate. I don't know. So yeah.
So how about we do an issue for the kind of the next iteration of FOSS pipelines? I don't know if there is one, and we can kind of summarize this discussion, and make a decision async on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
In the meantime, like I think we can make it clear when there is a master broken for FOSS reasons, just in our like Slack notifications, so like merging is still allowed, or like maintainers can continue to merge unless there's a reason why we should not do that. Okay.
Cool. And I think that Albert's suggestion for the static check could, like, we could just maybe like start the application basically in the as if mode job, as if FOSS mode. Yeah, I completely screwed up my sentence. In the as if FOSS mode, yeah. And maybe that would catch like constants that aren't available in FOSS or stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that can be done very quickly, and maybe it can at least catch some of them.
Yeah.
Awesome. Remy, are you able to create that issue? If not, I can get through it in like an hour and a half.
Yeah, I can create an issue.
Great. Mark, you want to take the next item?
Yeah. So quite a while ago, we had a proposal from a product manager at the time to automatically classify the labels for issues using TensorFlow and a Python web service. We did think about trying this out again to automatically add category labels, which will then flow back to add group labels and stage labels as part of the inference. So we came up with a phase one, which would be to stand up this web service and on a weekly basis send the track the changes that the service suggests against what the actual applications have been as part of the unlabeled triage, so we can test to see how accurate this classifier is, and then whether we can use it for other purposes, such as applying type labels and things like that, because we are missing, we feel like there's two phases to the automatic application of labels, one being the category to have the inference, and then the other being the type label, and then we'd have the whole of the triage criteria covered. So yeah, it was just a note to say that I'm looking at some point to stand up that service and run a test for a few weeks to see how well it stands up and how good the suggestions that it makes are. I think there will be a lot of, there is a lot of data, so it should be fairly accurate, but this is an exercise to find out exactly how accurate it is.
Cool. I think the department, you know, if we can work towards having that augment the triage package or eliminate it even, I think that'll be welcome by the whole department. So cool. I have the next item. I just wanted to kind of pull it in here on the backstage KR. I'm kind of, I feel like there's a piece of the puzzle that I'm missing here. So MEC proposed not adding another type label, and I'm kind of confused that I think if we don't have that type taxonomy or something at the top, that it's going to be much harder to enforce like that mutual exclusiveness. We just have like tooling and bug, like everything is at that first key level. Is there something I'm missing here on this? I don't think there's a way for that key to indicate type. And I think reporting specifically in Sisense is going to be much more challenging when you start looking at throughput labels.
Yeah, I think it implies the context when you look at it, but I don't think it's used like that anywhere in the app right now. I don't think it extracts it in any way. We can do that in Sisense. So I think it would be easier if we're going to put everything in Sisense. But if we're still using insights and things like that, it's not going to do that. My fear with removing the top level labels is that we can't iterate so much. Like if we can iterate beneath that type label and leave it there, and we're not going to break everything around it. You know, we're not going to break insights and triage and things like that. I feel like it's a lot bigger of a change if we change the top level labels completely by removing them. I mean, renaming them's not so bad, but I think if we change them completely or remove them, then it makes it a lot more difficult to iterate on these changes. I think it's safer if we keep the top level label.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's funny that it's actually one of the reason why MEC wants to just rename the label is to have one big change for people to, like, it's easier for people to just change everything at once, like in their mind, rather than small things changing. But from our point of view, it's easier if we iterate, as you said. So yeah, that's a good point.
Okay. I think what I'm going to do, since Mech hasn't done that, I moved my one-on-one with him to tomorrow since I was out yesterday. I'm just going to bring this up with him and see if we can get some updates here. But really, that trade-off is what you said. Like, are we going to optimize for our iteration, or like complete change management, like one big change? And if we're doing one big change, we may want to relook at the current proposal a little bit. I guess I should say, should we revisit the current proposal? What do you think?
But to do one big change, we would have to incorporate other type labels too, I think. It wouldn't just be a backstage change, is that right?
That's what I was thinking. Like we'd want to look at the full kind of taxonomy and make one much larger change than what's being proposed.
Yeah.
And Mech may have I guess a different idea, so there might be a middle ground, but that's my hope, is to kind of bring it up in our one-on-one and then discuss it. Like we'll add it in the issue. We'll summarize it in the issue.
I would like to isolate it to one top level type, and then hopefully there will be similar things that happen when we convert, say, type or say feature or bug as well. Yeah, I think it's better to isolate, because if we change triage and everything like that, we've had problems in the past where it's been quite difficult to reverse the changes that triage has made.
Yeah, yeah. I think it would just be easier to introduce like feature addition. What was the proposal? Feature addition, and yeah, basically not change the current feature label, but just introduce subtype labels at first, even if we don't cover all the feature subtypes. At least we cover the big ones like feature addition or feature maintenance, because these are the ones that should replace the current backstage, most of the current backstage work. And I think people should be able to understand that, that, okay, please stop using backstage as a catch-all, but please use feature addition or feature maintenance when applicable. And we should probably also introduce at the same time the tooling labels. But I mean, I don't think that we need to do this big change. I think people are able to just ingest that we are introducing more specific labels under the feature type.
Yeah.
But that's my take.
Okay. Okay. So that's good. That's pretty much in line with what I was thinking. I think if we do one bigger change, it carries a lot more risk for the sake of announcing one big change. We're not going to be able to learn and iterate as easily if we try and change a lot all at once. So, okay. Thanks for the thoughts and feedback on that. I appreciate it. Remy, you have the next few items. You want to just go through them?
Yeah. So yeah, the next one is just a random idea that I had. I was just wondering that we should consider using GraphQL instead of the REST API in GitLab Triage. But yeah, just created a placeholder issue basically. So yeah, I will leave it there. And the next one is about Triage serverless. Yeah, I was eager to just learn and contribute to it. So just wondering if that would be like a good first issue.
So my thoughts are we may, depending on what we just talked about, the backstage label, maybe a better Triage serverless starting point would be like label application based on that subtype, if we still have those top level types. But that would be a good place to start based on the known issues from what I'm aware of. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, the next one is also related to Triage serverless. Yeah, that's something that's on my mind for a few weeks or months already. Like we could really use Tria serverless for more things that we do now. And one thing that I find I would find awesome is that we could actually have Danger have Danger implemented with it, so that it could run for forks, because the all the permission would be handled by the Tria serverless. But yeah, more generally, I was just thinking that we could like introduce a way for Tria serverless to respond to specific nodes that mention it. And I gave an example on one of my personal projects on GitHub. And like we could just start simple. And so one idea could be like to update the roulette. And we could actually like implement the roulette into Tria serverless maybe one day, so that it can be used on other projects as well. I mean, there are many ideas, but in general, that was, yeah. What do you think?
I think, sure, as long as we can find a good way to use it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about, like, for example, rerun Danger job. For example, like I might see something I might want to rerun it, then I keep telling it to rerun, and people receive notification from my comments talking to a bot.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've seen some of, like, if you go to GitHub, there's many projects that have this kind of automation. Like they almost do everything via the bot. Like, and it's kind of funny, but I understand.
Yeah, I was trying to find the issue. I like this idea in principle. I think just finding the right use case to start would be a really good thing. Roulette might, and I guess when I say right, like what's something simple that we can use to prove out the concept. One of the things I've seen talked about as trying to find the issue was allowing for like labeling or assignment actions via like a bang command, so like bang instead of like a quick action, using a bang command so that community contributors or non-group members can actually do those actions as well. I was trying to, again, I'll hunt down that issue, but that was another thing. But I would like to explore the use cases very similar like this, because that's one of the things I like about all of the apps in the GitHub ecosystem is that they have those commands, and you can kind of it's an easy way to interact with those apps.
Yeah, there's a lot we could use this for GitLab project issues, merge requests, so much stuff. Just to increase, it would increase. Well, it should decrease the time that we get new issues to the people that need to see them as well. Hopefully, we could do. We could check that templates are being used, for example. You know, we always respond and say there's not enough information here, use the bug or the feature template. We could detect for similarity against our templates in new issues and things like that. I think it could be really, really useful, yeah.
Does anyone have any strong feelings on somewhere to start on this? Like it might be nice to just identify 4 or 5 use cases how we could use the triage bot, and then look at which one makes sense to start with. Otherwise, we can start with Remy, like one of the ones you suggested here, like Roulette or Danger.
Yeah, we could, if we really want to do a proof of concept, we can implement ping command that would just reply pong with the comment that was posted. Yeah, no. I can create an issue to and we can try to list a few use cases in there.
And I'll dig through. I feel like this has come up a few times with Gabe and some of the other people in product. So we could even just ask, say, hey Gabe, are there ideas that you have or somewhere that you're doing this as well? So cool. Thanks for bringing that up. I'm excited to see where that goes.
Cool.
Jinshin, over to you.
Yeah, so we just Marine just made the mirrors to be private, and we can reuse them with security QA. So we don't have to create another set of mirrors, which is nice. So far, I'm not sure if anything breaks yet. I need to check. I hope it's all fine, and yeah, it should make it much easier to make security QA.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure we'll find out quickly if something is wrong. Like one of the SCTs will, or even, well, it's allowed to fail. I would say master pipelines run it as well. It'll come to our attention. So,
cool.
Albert, over to you for the last one.
Yeah, so for Triage Serverless, I added Sentry. So now we can capture errors that is happening in the Triage Serverless. Then I've also added, I started off with the error tracking feature in the project to hook it up to the Sentry for that particular project. So that's done, and I'm now working on the triage ops. For this one, what I'm planning to do is to wrap the command line that calls GitLab triage and capture the error streams from that, and then send that error message to Sentry in a different project. So where I'm trying to get at with this is that hopefully we can probably reuse this wrapper for other scripts that we are using, because we do use a lot of command line scripts in a lot of our toolings, and it can get quite difficult to keep track of what is happening in those, and if there's any error, we always have to go back to the log of the job to find something. So hopefully this can be used and gives us more visibility for that.
Is it possible to add more information to the payload that's sent to Sentry, just in case we need, I mean, not straight away, but in case when we start investigating these errors, we find out we need a little bit more context about the particular job or the particular rule that was running when it failed?
Yep.
Is that possible?
Yeah, because so we can add any additional context we want. So for example, like for triage ops, we can probably put the policy name that that failed. So that will help us when debugging. Also, like any of the schedules or the variables in the pipeline that we may want to add.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really, really good to be able to find the errors in Sentry that are based that have been related to a particular policy, and see whether there's a trend there as well. Because sometimes they just have like a 500 error or some other error which will work again on a retry, but hopefully we should be able to see historically how many of those there have been.
Yep. All right. Yeah, that's from me.
Awesome. Well, that is the end. So I appreciate everyone's time. Thanks for going a few minutes over. I know it's later for some of you, so extra thanks. If there's anything else that we need to catch up on, feel free to use Slack or mention the team in issues. We'll catch everyone async.
Cool.
Have a good day, everyone.
Have a good day, evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.